Well, yes, I just recently called Nikola Jokic the most valuable player ever, but seriously, this is getting ridiculous. And the startling futility of the Denver Nuggets without him really does need to be put under a microscope here to fully understand just what level of insane value Jokic adds to this team. This coming off another humiliating loss without their all-everything and should be surefire four-time league MVP. The latest beating coming courtesy of the Memphis Grizzlies, a 105-90 massacre in a game that wasn't even that close, as the Nuggets were down 12 at halftime, 20 at the end of 3, and trailed by as many as 24 in the fourth. The loss, now the second straight without Jokic, and the second straight game in which the Nuggets couldn't even come close to cracking 100 points. But it was just a week ago that the Nuggets were riding high, sitting at 7-3 and on the heels of a 5-game winning streak behind a supercharged offense led by Nikola Jokic. At that point, the Nuggets were averaging the third best mark of the young NBA season, scoring 120 points per game and beating teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder and Dallas Mavericks during the stretch. But with Jokic missing consecutive games now for personal reasons, the true nature of this roster and his supporting cast can be fully understood. Remember how Jokic took an absolute beating and got slandered for losing that 7th game in the Western Conference semifinals a year ago against the Minnesota Timberwolves? Getting it into a Game 7 in a series the Nuggets should have got swept in and lost each game by double digits. But let's kill Jokic for failing to seal the deal in the 7th game, a game in which he scored 34 points and added 19 rebounds and 7 assists in while being forced to play all but 1 minute of the game. And the reason he had to do that? Well, look no further than this festering can of ass you are seeing right before your very eyes this season. He must push himself to absolute exhaustion nightly to give this floating dumpster of a roster he is surrounded with even a remote chance of winning games, and it seems of even looking like a real NBA team at all. Anytime this guy goes off the court, the Nuggets go from one of the best-rated offenses in NBA history to a team that likely wouldn't even beat an elite college squad at the moment. These last 2 losses without Jokic have been jarring to say the least, and it isn't like they are playing league-wide powerhouses, losing 1 game to the New Orleans Pelicans, the last place team in the Western Conference, and the other to the Memphis Grizzlies, who are playing without Ja Morant currently. This is what we have been seeing, though, for the last 5 years now and counting. It is what we have been seeing this season in per 100 possession sample size, but for some reason, it becomes more glaringly apparent when Jokic sits out for an entire game. The fact Jokic has won a title somehow is nothing shy of a miracle, because this team legitimately looks like it wouldn't even win 10 games in a full season without him. Yet they somehow won 53 games 2 years ago and that aforementioned championship, while they then won 57 games last year. The biggest issue, of course, is the appalling decision-making at the top, the front office, which would mean village idiot and team general manager Calvin Booth, who has negligently flushed Jokic's prime down a toilet by tying him to Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. And how Booth is still employed at this stage is anyone's guess. Oh sure, the two are averaging 17 points per game each currently, but for their price tags, you would be expecting much more from both. Murray in particular, who is averaging just 17 points per game, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds on 39% shooting from the field so far. This guy just signed a $208 million extension for 4 years this summer. And predictably, the last 2 games without Jokic have looked even worse for both of these guys. Murray is now averaging just 14.5 points per game in those last 2 without Jokic on 38% shooting from the field and 21% from the three-point line. Again, people, he is making $50 million per year, while the $37 million per year man, Michael Porter Jr., just dropped a 10-point turd against Memphis on 4 of 12 shooting from the field and 0 of 4 from the three-point line. Like, no kidding, Christian Braun looks like the Nuggets' second best player right now behind Jokic. Seriously though, it isn't that much of a stretch. Looking at the box plus minus scale currently, which is an estimate of the points per 100 possessions added above league average, and Christian Braun is 100th league-wide, while Michael Porter Jr. is sitting at 95. Those are the best two players currently on the Nuggets outside of Jokic himself, who is leading the league in that BPM metric by a country mile. But looking around the NBA currently, the Lakers have two players in the top 12, with AD at 6 and LeBron at 12. The Oklahoma City Thunder have 3 players in the top 14, while the Warriors have 2 top 15 players and the Celtics have 4 in the top 42. And are you wondering how the Cavaliers are a league best 15-0 right now? Well, they have 6 players in the top 78. Jokic's best 2 players currently are 95 and 100. Yet we are really going to sit here and think of this season as a failure if Jokic does anything but win a championship. Talk about insane expectations. We are really going to think of this team as a real title contender. The only thing they should be contending for is the #1 overall pick in this upcoming draft. And the only failure is by the front office in what they have done and who they have forced Jokic to play with for what will be virtually his entire career. He is sitting now in his 10th NBA season and is tied to Jamal Murray for the next 4 years to the tune of $50 million per year, which all but assures Jokic might never play with a single All-Star player for his entire career ever. At this stage of their careers, that would be in their 10th NBA seasons. LeBron James had played with 8 All-Stars already. Shaquille O'Neal had played with 9, while Charles Barkley had played with 12, and Magic Johnson had played with 17. That is 17 All-Star teammates for Magic in his first 10 years. Tim Duncan, meanwhile, played with 6, and even Michael Jordan had an All-Star teammate 4 times by his 10th season. Again, Jokic with 0. Never. And again, with all of that money committed to Murray for years now, chances are highly likely he never will. At least not for what will be the first 14 years of his career. Nikola Jokic has by far the least help from a supporting cast standpoint than any other historical great who has ever played. The least, and I do mean the very least, the NBA writers can do is acknowledge this fact and give this guy another in what will be a very deserving league MVP award at the end of this season.